Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video we have another news and rumor video to discuss. In today's video we're looking at some signings, some injury updates, some waiver updates, and a couple of trade rumors involving the Sharks, the Flames, the Ducks, and the Buffalo Sabres. We'll go to all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we begin this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for all of your support. We'd never be able to without you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment down in the comment section below so you can also listen to this video. So in today's video, I would usually start off by talking about some signings from the past couple of days, but we haven't had any signings. So we'll start today's video off by looking at some injury updates from our past 3 days. First, when it comes to the New York Islanders, for Matthew Barzal and Matthew Duclair, both players have started skating and may be able to return in the very near future. Duclair's been skating for about a week now, I think it's been. So Duclair's probably going to be activated off of LTIR before Barzal is, but both have been skating over the past little while and could be nearing a return in hopefully not too distant future. So very good stuff there for the Islanders. Kane Goalie returned to game action on Saturday after missing one game with an illness, so really good to see Goalie back, and the Habs getting the top for the defenseman back. Ross Colton was active off of long-term injury reserve on Saturday and got back into game action after he missed 17 games with a foot injury, so really great news there for the Avalanche to get Colton back. Well, Jonathan Drouin was placed in injury reserve with a body injury, and he's going to be out for quite a bit of time, so that's a bad blow there for the Avalanche. For the Maple Leafs, Max Pacioretty was activated off of injury reserve, long-term injury reserve that is, and he returned to game action on Saturday after missing 10 games with a lower body injury, so that's great news there for the Leafs to get Pacioretty back. Then when it comes to Max Domi and recently placed in injury reserve Jake McCabe, they were both practicing and could return from their injuries as early as Tuesday, so really great news there for the Leafs as they should be getting McCabe and Domi back in the not distant future, and great news to see Pacioretty already return. St. Louis's Justin Faulk returned to game action on Saturday after missing 2 games with an upper body injury, so good boost there to the Blues decor to get Faulk back. Akil Thomas was active off of injury reserve and returned to game action after missing a week with undisclosed injury. That's really good news there for the Kings to get one of their young forwards back into the lineup. New York Rangers Urho Vanecek, who was recently acquired from the Jacob Trouba deal. He was acquired and was injured. He started to skate in a non-contact jersey, but is still out with upper body injuries, so good to see him skating. Hopefully he'll return on to this in future, but still out with his injury. Alex Lyon and Cam Talbot will both miss the next 2 games at least for the Detroit Red Wings with a lower body injury. It sounds like they could be back at some point later this weekend, but it does sound like they'll miss at least the next couple of games, so bad blow there for the Red Wings as Lyon and Talbot, the top 2 goaltenders, are both dealt with injuries. Ivan Provorov left Friday's game with upper body injury and did not return, so hopefully he'll be returning in out to this in the future, but it's a bad blow there for the Jackets. Philip Tomasino is day-to-day with upper body injury for the Pittsburgh Penguins and missed Saturday's game, so bad blow there for the Penguins as Tomasino, who's been a fantastic addition since coming over from Nashville, is going to miss at least the next game or 2, so bad stuff there for the Penguins. Both Peter Mrazek, who left Saturday's game with a lower body injury, and Alec Martinez, who left Saturday's game with a face injury, both left Saturday's game and are going to miss at least a little bit of time due to their separate injuries, so bad blows there for the Hawks to lose the top 4 defensemen and their starting level goaltender. Well, Thess Jones will start to skate before practice, but is still out with a foot injury, so Jones is nearing a return, could be back in the next week or 2 there for the Hawks, but still he's out at this point in time. Rasmus Andersson missed both Saturday and Monday's games as he's now been out 3 straight games with back spasms, so bad stuff there for the Sabres that still are without their top defenseman. While Jordan Greenway returned to game action on Monday after missing 10 games with the injuries, so great news there for the Sabres to see Greenway get back off of his injury. Jamie Drysdale and Sam Ersson were both activated off of injury reserve. Drysdale after missing 12 games with upper body injury, Ersson after missing 11 games with lower body injury, and both returned to game action on Sunday, so very fantastic news there for the Flyers to get Ersson and Drysdale back. Joey Daccord missed Sunday's game with an illness and is day-to-day, so hopefully Daccord won't be out for an over long period of time. That's a bad blow there for the Kraken. Well, Gord returned to game action on Saturday after missing 1 game with an undisclosed injury, so great news there to see Gord back. He's a really big piece of that forward group, so good to see that. Minnesota's Jacob Lauko, who has missed a couple of weeks now, is expected to return to game action on Tuesday from his lower body injury, so really great news there as Lauko could be returning in the not distant future. For the Tampa Bay Lightning, Anthony Cirelli left Sunday's game with an injury and didn't return, as did Eric Chernak, so hopefully Cirelli and Chernak won't miss too much time, but those 2 both did leave the Bolts' most recent game, so that's a horrible blow there for Tampa. Well, Nikita Kucherov returned to game action after missing 2 games with undisclosed injury. So big boost to see Kucherov get back, but horrible blows to see Cirelli and Chernak leave the game. Alex Ovechkin and Sonny Milano both skated for the Washington Capitals before practice recently. Still remain out with their injuries, but could nearing a return not to us in future. That could be a massive boost to get Ovechkin back for the Capitals, and Milano could be a really big boost to get him back as well. So it sounds like Washington could be getting those two back in not just in future. Nationals Alex Carrier is out week to week with upper body injury, so that's a bad blow there for the Predators. Carrier's been a really solid third pair defenseman, so to see him go down with an injury is awful news. Dave Pastrnak missed practice due to upper body injury, and he may miss the next game for the Bruins, so that could be a really big blow there for the Bruins if Pastrnak doesn't play in the next one. Edmonton's Vic Arvidsson is back to skating. First time in a month I think he's been able to skate, but still with undisclosed injury, he's probably going to be out for another week or two, but still good to see him starting to skate. And Zach Whitecloud returned to practice recently and should return to Vegas at some point during the upcoming road trip, so that's a really big boost there as Whitecloud could be back for the Golden Knights in the not too distant future, but really great stuff there to see him starting to skate again. So interesting note there. Those are all the injuries there from the past couple of days. It looks good to see guys like Kucherov, Drysdale, Faulk, and Pacioretty all return from action, and it didn't look too bad in their returns. But bad news to see guys like McCabe, Provorov, Mrazek, and Daccord all be out with injuries, and hopefully they're not going to be out for an overly long period of time, but some bad injury blows there to those players. Next, going over to a quick waiver update here from the past couple of days. Nothing too much here to talk about when it comes to the waiver updates. We saw 3 players who placed on waivers on Sunday, and that was Joesph Anderson in Chicago, Caleb Jones in Los Angeles, and Givani Smith in San Jose. So those were all 3 guys who were placed on waivers. Now Smith has been a solid 13th, 14th forward throughout his career, so I thought there might have been a chance someone could have claimed him, but I thought he was probably going to be clear. Caleb Jones has been a solid 6th, 7th defenseman over the past couple of years, so I thought a team who may be in desperate need of some D help could have tried to acquire Caleb Jones, and I thought that Anderson probably would have cleared too. He's been mostly an AHL player over the past couple of years. All 3 did wind up clearing back over on Monday, so Anderson, like I said, not too surprised there. He's more of an AHLer, so I was not overly surprised he was cleared. I'm also not overly surprised Givani Smith cleared, as he's been mostly a 13th, 14th, 4th throughout his career, and after being placed on waivers and clearing waivers, he was a part of the McKenzie Blackwood deal, so not too surprised there that they packaged him as part of that to go to Colorado. So interesting note there. When it comes to Caleb Jones, I'm a little bit surprised no team who was in need of defensive help didn't claim him, but he's more of a 7th, 8th defenseman, and I thought there could have been a chance that a team or two could have taken him on, especially with him only being on a 1-year contract, but he does wind up clearing and goes to the AHL, so interesting note there. And then earlier today we saw Alec Regula be placed on waivers by Boston. I think Regula started out the season on season opening injury reserve, so he needed to be placed down on waivers. I could see maybe him be claimed. I was thinking he would mostly wind up clearing. He's been mostly an AHL defenseman over the past couple of years, so I wouldn't expect him to probably be claimed, but I think there's maybe a slight chance he winds up getting claimed, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But Regula has been placed on waivers, so we'll have to wait and see more if he does wind up getting claimed or not, but interesting note there. And we also saw Caleb Jones in LA, Givani Smith in San Jose, and Joesph Anderson in Chicago all be placed and cleared waivers, so interesting note there. And lastly, going over to a couple of trade rumors. Now when it comes to trade rumors, we have 4 things to talk about here today. We're going to start off with something that Pat Stienburg was talking about on Sportsnet. Now he was talking about the Calgary Flames and specifically Rasmus Andersson. Now we know that Rasmus Andersson has been a player who's been in the trade rumor mill ever since the offseason. We know that he's got this year plus next year left on his contract at a $4.5 million cap hit. He's a fantastic top 4, top pair right shot defenseman, which is something a lot of teams covet and would love to get their hands on. We know that entering this season, the Flames were a rebuilding team. They didn't want to sort of wait on making some major moves, but there's a very likely chance they were going to be a rebuilding team, and they probably weren't going to make the playoffs this year. Well, they've had a really good start to this season. They're, I think, 3rd or 4th in the Pacific Division. They're one of the top teams in the Western Conference. I think they're in a playoff spot or just out of it. So they're looking good so far early on this year, and Anderson's been a really big piece of it. I think Anderson has like 6 or 7 goals or something like that, and he's up to like 12 or 13 points. So he's looked pretty good, Anderson has, and he's been a phenomenal beast on that blue line for the Flames. Now the Flames don't have too much talent, and there's a very likely chance that as the season gets longer and longer and as the games get harder and harder, the Flames may start to dwindle. We've already seen them have multiple big losing streaks, and they've won like once in the last 7 or 8 games. So Flames are not doing overly good right now, and there's a very likely chance that if they fall off and now they will still maybe make some moves. But when Steinberg was talking about Anderson, he says that he thinks they should try and consider extending him. So if they can extend him and he has an interest in going to the UFA market, market. He says that maybe they should try and consider moving Anderson closer to the 2026 trade deadline. So probably not this year, but maybe next year at the deadline. I think it's possible, given how big and important of a player Anderson's been for Calgary this year, at least early on. I could see why he would probably say for them to wait on trading him, trying to extend him first, at least when he's eligible to do so in July. And now they could maybe get a bigger return with him having this year and next year left on his deal if they were to trade him at this year's trade deadline. And we'll have to wait and see, like we said, if the Flames are really out of a playoff spot come the trade deadline, or if they're going to be a team who more likely stays in the playoff hunt and maybe tries to keep on Anderson. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But Stienburg thinks that's more than likely that we see Anderson maybe be dealt at a 2026 trade deadline if he doesn't want to sign an extension with the Flames. But he believes that the Flames should try and at least extend him, or at least try to, before they consider moving him. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But Anderson's still going to be an interesting to watch out for, especially if the Flames start to take a nosedive in the not too distant future. Going over to the San Jose Sharks, when it comes to the Sharks, we know that they just recently pulled off a goalie move, trading Blackwood and a couple of pieces to the Avalanche in exchange for Kovalenko, Georgiev, and 2 picks. It was a really good move, but there's been a couple of articles I've seen recently say that that might not be the only goalie move we see from San Jose this season, and there's a lot of talk that at some point the Sharks might move on from one of Alex Georgiev or Vitek Vanecek. Now, Vanecek I think has this year left a $3.4 million cap hit, so he's a pending UFA goalie. Georgiev had 14% of his contract retained by the Colorado Avalanche, so his current cap hit in San Jose is only $2.9 million. So both goalies are not overly expensive, one around the $3 million mark, one around the $3.5 million mark. Both have not had overly great stretches so far this year, but are serviceable backup tandem goaltenders who could be really good on a number of different teams. So like we said, the Sharks don't have the ability to retain money, so they'd either have to have a third party retain or they'd have to trade him at the current cap hits. But I could definitely see the Sharks try and move on them. There's been a lot of speculation that after a fantastic start in the AHL from Askarov, the Sharks want to really get Askarov some NHL playing time before the end of the season. So they'd rather probably want to move on from one of Georgiev or Vanecek, move on from one of them, and then bring up Askarov to get some NHL playing time before the start of next season, where he's most likely going to be a tandem goaltender with someone. So it'll be interesting to see exactly who they move. I think it's more likely Vanecek gets moved. He's been there for a little while now. I think there's a very likely chance that some teams could try and acquire him. He's also, I think, played a slight bit better than Georgiev has this year. So I think there might be a couple more teams interested in Vanecek than it being Georgiev's. But Georgiev is a solid goaltender. He's been a starter for the last couple of years in Colorado. Even though he hasn't had the best of seasons, I think he's still a really good goaltender. And I think there could be a couple of teams out there, especially as $2.9 million cap hit, who have some interest in him. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But expect the Sharks to not make just this goalie move for Blackwood for Georgiev. And watch out for them, as there's a very likely chance they could make another goaltender move when it comes to Georgiev or Vanecek being moved to give Askarov some NHL time. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Going over to Jacob Trouba. Now we know he recently got traded from the New York Rangers to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for a draft pick of Vanekainen. That was an interesting move, but that might not be the only move Trouba sees at this point in time this year. According to 2 recent reports I've seen, one says that there's a very likely chance that the Ducks will flip Trouba back to an Eastern Conference team. We know that Trouba has a 15-team no trade list and could block a trade to a lot of teams. There's a lot of speculation that he might want to go back east to be closer to family. So with that in mind, there's a very likely chance that Trouba could wind up waiving his no trade clause, and the Ducks could try and find a spot for him to try and get him back in the eastern side of things. So it'll be interesting to see. There's a very likely chance we could see Trouba be flipped before the trade deadline, and it's not guaranteed he spends the rest of the year in Anaheim. And according to Steve Simmons of the Toronto Sun, he says that Toronto might be a landing spot for him. He says that as long as the Leafs can get someone, either the Ducks or a third party, to retain some of Trouba's $8 million cap hit, then they might have some major interest. There was already some linkage to Trouba early on in the year. That makes some sense. The Leafs could definitely use some more blue line upgrades. They've had a solid blue line so far this year, but if they were to add Trouba to that, especially in a hard-hitting, difficult Eastern Conference, adding Trouba to that blue line would be a massive addition there for the Leafs, and I think they would have the sort of assets they would need to sort of pull off a Trouba deal. As long as they can get someone to retain money, because they can't take him on an $8 million cap hit, I think there would be some major interest from the Leafs, and there'll probably be a couple of other teams I think who would love to add a solid top 4 defenseman like a Jacob Trouba. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. According to a couple of recent reports, Trouba may not stay in Anaheim long term. He may be flipped before a trade deadline, and according to Steve Simmons, Toronto might be a team, as long as they can get someone to retain cap hits, who could try and land Trouba. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. And lastly, going over to the Buffalo Sabres, Elliotte Friedman was recently talking, I think I was on the 32 Thoughts podcast, and he was talking about Dylan Cozens. Now he says that there's been a lot of teams out there who have been checking in on Dylan Cozens and looking to see if they can try and acquire him. Cozens has had a poor start to the year. He had a great season 2 years ago, but took a little bit of a nosedive last year and has not had a fantastic year this year. Some of the Sabres fans are starting to get upset with Cozens not doing overly well at this point in his career. And it seems like some Sabres fans want either Cozens to be gone or for him to try and find his footing. So it seems like, according to Elliotte Friedman, some teams have started to check in on Cozens. I think we talked about this earlier, how Cozens could be a potential trade chip for the Sabres. Now, according to Elliotte Friedman, he says that if it was him in the Buffalo Sabres organization, he says that he probably wouldn't want to move Cozens, just given the fact of how many good players they've dealt and have gone on to have success elsewhere, such as Ryan O'Reilly, who was traded and won the Cup in St. Louis, such as Reinhart and Montour, who were both traded to Florida and then won the Cup last year in Florida, such as Jack Eichel, who was traded and won the Cup a couple of years ago in Vegas. And he says that he would be worried that if they traded Cozens, that could be a similar sort of thing where he could go to another team, have a ton of success, and eventually win a cup before the Sabres even make the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think trading Cozens is the right move at this point in time for the Sabres, because I think on year 2 of a 7-year deal with AAV of just over $7 million, so he's cost controlled for the next little while. He's got really high upside. I would not move him at this point unless they have a trade that absolutely blows their socks off. So unless they're getting some sort of an amazing asking price, I would not move on from Cozens, but there's apparently been a lot of teams who have some interest, and maybe there's a possibility Cozens could move. But personally, in my opinion, I would not move Cozens. He's a really big piece of that team. He's a young second-line center, and I think he'd be a really good fit there long-term for Buffalo. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But if the Sabres consider moving him, you got to think they have some regrets after moving O'Reilly, Reinhart, Eichel, and Montour, and all of them having success and winning Stanley Cups elsewhere. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but there's apparently been some teams out there who've been checking in on the availability of Dylan Cozens. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But that's what I want to talk about for today. I'll let you guys thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. What are your opinions on all of this? Do you think that there's a possibility that the Sabres could move Cozens? Is it a very likely possibility? And if so, what sort of return do you think the Sabres could get? Do you think that the Ducks wind up flipping Trouba at the trade deadline? Do you think he goes back east and could Toronto be a landing spot? Let you guys thoughts on that. Do you think the Sharks move another goaltender? Which one's more likely, Georgiev or Vanecek? And if so, what sort of return do you think the Sharks could get for him? And do you think the Flames move Anderson closer to the 2026 trade deadline? Could he move before this year's trade deadline? Could he move in the offseason, or does he re-up with Calgary? Definitely let you guys thoughts on all of that. Plus the waiver updates and injury updates from our past couple days. Definitely let you guys thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. So I'm going to talk for today. We're going to play this video. If you'd like to subscribe below. Thank you all your support. We're going to love you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget the subscribe button down below. Definitely leave a comment down in the comment section below so we can discuss today's video. Also blog, comment, news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I'll link to the description below. And catch you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.